Before we can understand how to best train the arms, it's important to first understand their anatomy. The upper arm consists of 3 muscles in the anterior compartment, the biceps brachii, the brachialis, and the very slender coracobrachialis, and 1 muscle in the posterior compartment, the triceps brachii. And even though the triceps is the biggest muscle of the upper arm, we'll start with the muscles on the front first. The brachialis doesn't get as much attention as the biceps, probably because it lies deeper, so you can't really see it superficially when you flex your arms. However, increasing its size will push the biceps muscle up and out more, leading to an appearance of bigger biceps. While they're pretty comparable in thickness, the brachialis is actually a stronger elbow flexor than the biceps because, unlike the biceps, it doesn't cross the shoulder joint, meaning it can focus its full attention at the elbow. On the other hand, the biceps are technically triarticular, meaning they can act on 3 joints to perform 3 main functions: elbow flexion, or curling, forearm supination, or turning your palm up, and shoulder flexion, or lifting your arm up like in a front raise. The biceps have 2 heads, a long head on the outside and a short head on the inside. Both perform all these functions, while the long head seems to assist more with shoulder abduction, or lifting your arm out to the side, with the short head doing more adduction. There seems to be a camp of minimalistic trainers who swear that heavy compound lifts will be enough to make your arms grow on their own, and in a sense they're right. Several studies have shown compound vertical pulling movements to elicit high levels of biceps activation, with some being better than others. A 2010 study by Udis et al. Showed that the biceps elicited higher EMG activity with the chin-up than the pull-up, which makes sense when you consider the simultaneous supination and elbow flexion you see in the chin-up, but both can be said to highly activate the biceps. Horizontal pulling movements like rows will also activate the biceps to a degree, with the inverted barbell row appearing to be the best in this category, eliciting 77% activation relative to maximum voluntary contraction. But for all that, I think that these movements are better seen as back builders, not bicep builders, and in my opinion, these compound movements just don't elicit high enough activation levels to really maximize biceps development on their own. In fact, many bodybuilding coaches recommend taking a mental effort to minimize bicep involvement on these movements, in which case I think it would be even more prudent to include isolation exercises for the arms. In other words, to really optimize your biceps training, you need to curl. And while there are a ton of different ways you can perform this basic movement, the most important thing is that you're just flexing your elbow under load. Since, as far as we know, all curling movements lead to very high levels of biceps activation, I would focus more so on finding one main movement that you enjoy, feels comfortable for you, and is well suited for steady, progressive overloading. Unsurprisingly, higher relative loads have been shown to increase biceps activation, and with the biceps being slightly type 2 or fast twitch dominant, having at least one exercise such as the barbell, easy bar, or dumbbell curl loaded heavily in a lower rep range, like 4 to 8 reps, makes sense. Because research shows that you're stronger earlier in the training session, this heavy movement should be performed first. While the scientific literature as a whole indicates that concentric, or positive, and eccentric, or negative, muscle actions both promote substantial hypertrophy, Hawther et al. Found that hypertrophy can't be maximized unless eccentric actions are performed, and other research found eccentrics to lead to increased muscle protein synthesis. So either through the use of moderate cheating or by using a spotter's assistance, controlled eccentrics at the end of your final heavy set will likely maximize the training stimulus for that exercise. It's important to consider grip as well. Since the biceps are such a powerful supinator, performing curls with a fully supinated grip or a rotating grip, where supination and elbow flexion happen concurrently, makes the most sense biomechanically. Contrary to popular belief, the hammer grip has also been shown to elicit very high levels of biceps activation. The only grip that seems to be really suboptimal for biceps activation is the pronated, or palms down grip, with one source showing it to have less than 40% activation relative to a supinated grip. That isn't to say the pronated or reverse grip curl doesn't have its place. It's likely very effective at activating the brachioradialis muscle of the forearm and that deeper underlying brachialis muscle. Grip width also matters. Since the long or outer head contributes more to abduction, taking a slightly wider grip might activate the long head more. While I am an advocate of periodically altering one's grip width, taking a very close grip where the hands are only about a single hand's width apart seems to hinder biceps activation, with one source showing a 13% detriment in activation relative to a shoulder width grip. A strong case can also be made for combining exercises. A 2009 study by Oliveira et al. Measured biceps activity at different parts in the range of motion for 3 different exercises, and found that activation was the highest in the initial third of the range of motion for the preacher curl, with activation dropping off for the remaining 2/3. Both the standing curl and incline curl showed the exact opposite pattern. Activation was the lowest at the bottom and highest at the top of the range of motion. I think that what this means in practice is that combining exercises where the shoulders are more extended or back behind the body with exercises where the shoulders are more flexed or out in front of the body is best for recruiting all regions of the biceps more evenly. One potential limitation of all the aforementioned exercises is a mismatch between the exercise's resistance curve and the strength curve of the biceps. Basically, peak torque occurs in all of these circular curls where the elbow is at 90 degrees of flexion, and every point in the range of motion above and below 90 degrees results in less tension on the biceps. An easy way around this is by doing a cable curl facing away from the cable machine. This way you have roughly even tension throughout the range of motion, which, while not inherently a good thing, at least ensures that if you are reaching failure, it's the result of maximal motor unit recruitment, and not a mechanical shortcoming of the movement itself. Frequency and volume recommendations will depend on your level of advancement. However, I do make those recommendations in my arm hypertrophy program, which I've linked in the description. But for some reference point, volume expert Dr. Mike Israetel suggests 8 weekly sets as a minimum for progress, and 14 to 20 weekly sets being a pretty optimal place for most intermediate to advanced trainees. How you space this out in the training week will depend on your split, but hitting your arms at least twice per week and as frequently as every day can make sense, as long as the weekly volume and intensity requirements are being met. As the name implies, the tricep has 3 heads: a lateral or outer, medial or middle, and long head, which is more on the inside part of the arm. And because the long head originates on the scapula, it crosses the shoulder, and as such can weakly contribute to shoulder extension. This is why sometimes when you do exercises like pullovers or even rows, your triceps will be sore the next day. I attribute a lot of my own tricep development to bench pressing alone, and if I were to pick only one exercise for the triceps, this would be it. Because the bench press, being a compound movement, is so conducive to overloading, it makes it a perfect choice for the triceps' main heavy movement. And again, and unsurprisingly, heavier loads have been shown to elicit higher levels of triceps activation. So relatively heavy weight should be used on this exercise, something like 4 to 8 reps per set. A narrower grip also increases triceps activation, according to Barnett et al., where a shoulder width grip led to more activation than 2 times shoulder width, a finding supported by later research from Lehman in 2005, which also introduced an ultra-narrow third grip at the width of just 1 hand, which showed the highest activation of all. However, I would personally advise against using such a close grip since it can put unwanted strain on your wrist, limit range of motion, and just might not be worth that extra increase in activation, especially when combining the bench press with other isolation exercises. Barnett et al. Also showed that a flat bench angle was better for the triceps than decline, incline, or vertical presses. And for what it's worth, the Smith machine seems to work just fine here as well, with at least one study showing similar levels of triceps activation between the Smith press and bench press variations. Like the biceps, pressing movements may yield enough of a training stimulus to grow the triceps to an extent, but likely won't be able to really optimize progress on their own. So I recommend adding in one exercise that trains elbow extension where the shoulders are more extended, like a tricep press down, and one exercise where the shoulders are more flexed, like an overhead tricep extension. With the press down, you're going to be targeting more lateral head, since the long head is more shortened at the shoulder, putting it in a more actively insufficient position. Basically, it can't maximally contract at the elbow joint because it's already shortened up at the shoulder. Since the lateral head doesn't cross the shoulder, it isn't affected by this position. However, when you lift the arms up overhead, now the long head comes more into play, as it's now lengthened more at the shoulder joint and as such can contribute more to elbow extension. Similarly, because of the long head's contribution to shoulder adduction, you can get the long head contracting more in either movement by using a narrower grip or by tucking your elbows in rather than letting them flare out. However, similar to the biceps, unless you're trying to target a specific head because of a visual asymmetry, I think that using a variety of grips makes most sense, so that both heads can be evenly involved. As a so-called finisher exercise, I like to include medicine ball push-ups, mostly because it's a fun and challenging exercise that requires some core stability and athleticism, but also because multiple lines of research have shown push-ups performed on an unstable surface to lead to superior triceps activation than those done on a stable one. Again, volume and frequency recommendations are made in my arm hypertrophy program, but given the similarity in size and antagonistic function to the biceps, similar volume and frequency recommendations can be made for the triceps. Finally, like all muscles, in order to bring up your arms, you need to focus on training them directly and consistently. And if you eat enough calories and protein to fuel growth while putting these principles into practice, I'm confident you'll take your arm size up to the next level. What is going on, everyone? I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching the video. I wanted to give a special shout out to my girlfriend for filming this video. When we film these Science Explained videos, we don't really train. I get a bit of a workout in, but she just focuses on capturing the shots for the video. So please show her your gratitude. You can go over and check out her YouTube channel. And like I said in the video, my arm hypertrophy program is now live on my website. So my goal with this program was to put all of the scientific information in this video into an actionable form that you can apply in the gym. And it's more than just a training program. There's a full scientific justification for all exercises included in the program and a full explanation of the periodization scheme, progression scheme, sets, reps, tempos. And I think that this really is the best written product that I can possibly produce on the topic of arm training. So if you guys would like to check that out, the link is in the description, and I am running a sale for the first week of its release. So it's $19.99, and then after this week, it'll go up to $24.99. Also, we do have a bunch of travel coming up, so I'm gonna be doing a bunch of travel vlogs. I'm gonna be taking a slight break from the Science Explained videos and focusing on vlogging a little bit more, so you guys can stay tuned for that. Thank you once again so much for watching. Please hit the thumbs up button if you liked it, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I will see you guys in the next one.